Folks, I came across this particular story and excuse me, it just lets me know that you absolutely do not want to be under the control of jailers, Department of Correction officers, because these people are even worse than the regular everyday police officers that are out there on the street. Nevada jailers beat a man to death as he cried for help, and they had the audacity to say that we are the help. Video was released last week from a Nevada jail that shows the last minutes of a mentally ill Reno man's life before he died during a struggle with deputies who pinned him to the floor with a spit hood covering his head during booking procedures. During the struggle, deputies can be seen taunting 35-year-old, I believe it's Justin Thompson, telling him they owned him and would make sure he remembered it, adding he was an asshole and a dick. For more than 30 minutes, more than a dozen officers took turns kicking, tasering, insulting, and crushing the wind from Mr. Thompson's lungs, even after he told them several times he could not breathe due to the mask over his head. When Thompson screamed out for help, deputies replied, "We are the help." Jesus, Lord have mercy. I believe anyone who watches this video will understand why I was concerned about the handling of this incident and why I immediately called for an outside investigation, said Sheriff Chuck Allen, who runs the Washoe County Jail, where a sharp increase of in-custody deaths began just after Allen took place. Reminds me of somebody that's located in Milwaukee County, and that person's name is Clark. Anyway, the victim here, Mr. Thompson, was 35 years old, was one of 3 men who died during a struggle with deputies attempting to restrain them during the past 2 years, in addition to 10 others who've died from accidents, suicides, and natural causes since Allen took office. It took more than a day for jail personnel to decide Thompson needed to go to an emergency room after he was booked into the Washoe County Jail on domestic battery charges on August the 3rd, where he spent more than 24 hours pacing his cell, curling in a fetal position while clutching his head, plugging his ears with toilet paper, drawing on cell walls with his own blood, and climbing onto a metal sink to talk into the vent. After returning to the jail, a fatal struggle with deputies ensued. Video of the struggle shows Thompson squirming under several deputies who piled on, kicking him, kneeling on his back, and applying armbar holds. They tortured this man. It eventually ends with deputies performing CPR for 15 minutes, unsuccessfully attempting to revive him. It took deputies several days to inform next of kin Thompson had even been in a hospital. Thompson's mother, Karen Thompson, spoke to her son the night before he was arrested. He'd been planning to go to Bakersfield to visit his family, but Thompson never made it home. Thompson's girlfriend called his sister as she drove to Reno to pick him up on August the 3rd and said there had been an accident and Thompson was arrested. Karen Thompson attempted to call the jail to find information about her son, but was unable to find any specifics. "I'm frantically calling people," she said. "We didn't know what happened to him." On August the 7th, she received a notification her son had been released, but he hadn't been released. He had been declared brain dead at Renown Health's hospital. Authorities didn't even bother notifying Thompson's family he was in the hospital for 2 more days. On Tuesday afternoon, the 9th of August, I have a sheriff's officer here in Kern County that comes in and tells me that my son has passed away and told me he had died of a massive heart attack. Yeah, okay. More than 25 hours of video was released to the Reno Gazette Journal on April the 25th of this year, after deputies involved attempted to prevent the video's release. Yeah. Incriminating evidence, obviously. District Court Judge Jerome Paloha ordered the video to be released, but stipulated the sheriff's office blew out the deputies' faces. Thompson was extracted from his cell and taken to the hospital for acting erratically after the first 4 hours. Deputies returned Thompson to the cell from the hospital 4 hours later in a wheelchair after receiving a shot of an antipsychotic drug at the emergency room. A sergeant rolls him into another room. Then Thompson turns to look over his shoulder when the sergeant grabs his head, pushing it to the side. So they had it on for this guy right off the top. Thompson tries to slide out of the chair, and deputies then drag him to the floor onto his stomach, holding him down by his legs, shoulders, and feet. "How does this feel?" a deputy taunts Thompson. Thompson begins complaining he can't breathe. "No, you're not being compliant, Justin. We could have just rolled you through the process, but you're being a dick about the whole thing." A deputy can also be heard asking for a burrito. Jesus. So now we are to this level, and you're going to get carried in a little rap because you can't maintain enough thought to go through this process like a man, the deputy says. "If you hurt my staff, you are going to catch a felony, understand? We are not going to get injured by you, and if you lash out, I'm going to make sure you remember it." And actually, when they killed him, I guess, he's not going to be able to remember this particular incident. Anyway, as the struggle intensifies, deputies are seen kicking Thompson in the side while others pin him on his stomach with the spit hood on his head, which makes breathing difficult. Nurses enter the room to ask questions about his medical history, but never ask about what he was doing during the struggle. Towards the end, Thompson begins audibly wheezing and coughing about 28 minutes after the struggle began before he finally stops breathing. "When you listen to the questions, it seems ridiculous," retired Sheriff Sergeant Clyde Terrell said after watching the video. "The medical questions are being asked by memory, and none of them apply to his present situation. No one asks, 'Are you able to breathe?'" During the struggle, deputies continue attempting to complete booking procedures while Thompson is pinned on his stomach with the spit mask over his head. Karen Thompson described her son as someone who was always ready to help friends and family in need, and even let a friend undergoing cancer treatment move in with him. When his father's medical condition forced him to have his leg amputated, he traveled to California to help him. "Everybody always talked about how he helped them," she said. "He was always caring for other people." According to Thompson, her son had an anxiety disorder and had been in the hospital after he was diagnosed following panic attacks. Thompson's death was ruled a homicide by a medical examiner. Funny thing though, the Sparks Police Department, who conducted the investigation, found no criminal liability on the part of the deputies. Where the hell is the DA? Where the hell is a grand jury? It is past time where we get prosecutors that are willing to see what's there and call these guys to task, hold these people accountable. This is like the 4th or 5th case that I've seen in the last several months of corrections officers basically killing people and not being held accountable. This shit has to stop, and it needs to stop now. I don't know, folks, you have to make your own decision about this, but clearly this man had mental issues. Clearly these cops had it in for him. Cops, correction officers, whatever you want to call them, deputies. And clearly they believed, and I guess rightfully so, that they could do whatever they wanted, including killing this man with no consequences. At this moment, I believe it's up to the people of Nevada to raise their voices and have the right thing, to have justice done for this man. Every last one of those officers that was involved in this needs to be fired and arrested for murder, because that's exactly what they did. They killed this man.